Hey guys, welcome to Life on Turkey Lane. I'm so glad you joined me today. I have a neat little project to do with you or to share with you, a little recipe. And if you're new here, I'm so glad you're here. My name is Sheila. We live in the Ozark Mountains of Missouri, and today we are going to do something with some cucumbers that a friend that Andy works with gave to him. And so stick around, it's real simple. Okay guys, so like I said, one of Andy's friends at work gave us some cucumbers. I'm not a big cucumber eater. However, I do like pickles. Let me look at you here. Raise you back up here for just a second. I do like dill pickles. However, if you've ever noticed, I mean, even the dill pickles you get from the store, unless you buy like Clausen, the kind in the refrigerator, and they're pretty expensive. Most dill pickles are kind of soggy, and to me, I mean, we put hamburger dills on our sandwiches and stuff like that, and they're fine. But truthfully, I don't eat a whole lot of pickles otherwise, unless I put them like in my tuna salad and stuff like that, because they're soggy and they're just not a texture that I like. However, now there are some canning recipes that you can use that say that you'll get a crisper pickle and all this stuff. But I don't go through all that because, like I said, we don't use enough of them or eat enough of them really to merit me canning a whole bunch of soggy pickles. So this recipe, however, is going to be fermented pickles, and I have done this before. They turn out super good, super tasty. It does take about a week before you can really start eating them or anything, but they're crisp and they're really tasty. So let's get started. If you're new to fermenting, this would be a quick and easy thing for you to do, and something I think you'll like. If you know anything about fermenting, you know that fermented foods like sauerkraut, and I think I'm going to use a couple of the smaller ones, and these have seen better days. I mean, these are homegrown, and they've got some not bad spots, but like some little brown edges on them. But I think I'm going to use the smaller ones in this recipe because they won't have as big of seeds. These are not necessarily pickling cucumbers. Usually when I ferment cucumbers, I use those the long English cucumbers that you can buy from the store. I usually get mine at Aldi. So, but anyway, I'm going to use some of the smaller ones because the seeds won't be so big. And I'm just going to slice them in about quarter to half inch slices. So anyway, if you know anything about fermented foods like I said, sauerkraut and these pickles, and like kombucha if you want to drink it, or even yogurt. They're good probiotics. They're good for your gut health. They introduce good bacteria to your gut that will take away the bad bacteria. So they're really good for you. And so then I've got myself a quart mason jar, and I've got a wide mouth jar because it's easier to get. You can see these kind of pickles have a little bit bigger seeds in them, but it's not going to hurt this recipe. And I'm just going to start filling my jar up with them. And the cucumbers have been washed good. You could peel those little brown pieces off there. I'm not going to do that. But before we get started too far, I'm going to go ahead and You really only need, for fermenting, you really only need water, and I've got filtered water here. You don't want, if you use tap water, you need to let it sit overnight so the chlorine can evaporate out of it. You know, just cover it with a little paper towel or something, because you don't really want to use anything with chlorine in it. Mine's filtered water. And so, but anyway, you only need to ferment a vegetable, you only need water and salt. That's it. I'm going to add a few extra things, but the only thing is you don't want to use, like iodized table salt. You need to use sea salt, or like I've got the pink Himalayan salt here, and you're going to need 1 tablespoon for your quart jar. And I just hit that jar and I made a mess everywhere here. So 1 tablespoon is 3 teaspoons. So you need 1 tablespoon of salt for a quart jar. I'm just gonna clean that up real fast. Throw it out the back door here. And now you don't just throw your tablespoon of salt. That's probably a little more than a tablespoon, actually. Pour some of that back in there. Okay. So you're gonna just, you gotta, instead of just pouring your salt in there, which you could do, but your salt kind of needs to be dissolved a little bit. So I'm just gonna pour a little bit of my water in here. And the only reason I didn't put my salt inside this big thing of water is because once I get this jar full, I don't know how much water this is going to take to fill it up. But I know for a fact that I need the amount of salt that I've got. So I'm just going to let that dissolve a little bit while I'm cutting up the rest of the cucumbers here. And I like to cut the blossom end and the stem end off of my cucumber. And like I said, I'm just doing like 1/4 inch to 1/2 inch slices. Doing about like that. Some of them are a little bit thicker, but I think you get the gist of that. And I'm just going to do enough to kind of fill up my jar here. One of my smaller slices down there so it'll get kind of down at the bottom. So I'm going to pack my jar pretty tight here. Okay, and before I get that completely all packed up, I'm going to put a couple bay leaves in there. Bay leaves will help it to stay crisp. Help your pickles, your cucumbers to stay crisp. So I'm just going to put a couple of those down in there. Just down on the sides there. Okay. Go ahead and pack it some more. Okay. And before I go any farther with that, I've got 2 whole cucumbers in there, and I'm going to chop some of this one too. I think it'll fit in there. But now I don't have any dill weed. I couldn't find any at the store to put in my little herb garden out here this year, but I have dill seed. But now they don't really release a whole lot of their flavor unless you crush them up. And so now if you have a mortar and pestle, you can do it that way. And I do have one of those, but this is just easier. I've got like a little grinder mill here. And I'm just gonna put about, just a little palmful, about maybe a teaspoon. About a teaspoon of the dill seed. And I'm gonna grind it up in my little grinder here. This might be loud. And that's just so the dill seed will release its fragrance and its flavor, okay? So, as you can see, that ground those up. And I'm just gonna pour that in there. So we get that nice dill fragrance and flavor in there. So that's a good tip for you. If you don't have fresh dill weed, normally what I would do is stick a couple little pieces of fresh dill weed down in there. But if you don't have that, you can use dill seed. But like I said, you need to grind it up so it's smaller and will release its flavor. Okay, and this pickle, I'm not going to cut off that stem in there because I'm just probably going to use a part of this pickle. I think that's good, and I'm just filling it up to about my 1-inch headspace, about right to there. And then I'm going to pour my salted water into it. And then I'm going to fill it the rest of the way up. I had about 2 cups of water in this pitcher, by the way, this container. Okay, and I'm just going to push them down in there. I want to make sure that my liquid is all the way over the top of my my pickles there, my cucumbers. And then now you can buy, when you're fermenting, you can buy the, if you buy like a fermenting kit, it will come with a weight to keep all your vegetables under the water there. I don't have one of those, but you can use other things to hold your product down. And I'm just gonna stick these lettuce leaves here. I'm making a bit of a mess. My water's spilling out, but that's okay. Because I just want to keep the pickles underneath that brine, that water. And so that's why I'm putting those on there. And that's just going to hold them under the water. Because you don't want any oxygen getting to your vegetables there. Okay, now I'm going to get a towel and just wipe the ring here a minute, and then we'll be all set to go. And now some people, I don't have a little glass jelly jar. Some people will weight theirs down with a glass jelly jar, but you don't really have to do that. I've got this little container. I'm not going to use that either because I used the lettuce leaves to hold my cucumbers under the water. And as long as the cucumbers stay under the water, you're good. So then I'm just going to put my canning lid and my ring. Now I'm not going to secure that real tight. I'm just going to lightly put it on there. And what this does, the fermentation process, is after a day or so, you're going to see bubbles in your ferment. And that's what you want to see. And that is the good bacteria is taking hold and fermenting these vegetables, and you'll see bubbles. And the reason you don't want to tighten your lid all the way, you want to leave a little air, is at about once a day you'll come through and you'll burp this. But I'm going to put this whole jar in a little bowl. Let me go get my little bowl. Okay, so like I was saying, in the fermentation process, the gases and the CO2 build up inside the jar that causes those bubbles. And like I said, I'm not going to put my lid on super tight, but if I see that the lid is starting to like pump up a little bit or whatever, about once or twice a day, I'm going to come along and I'm just going to what they call burp it. And I'm just going to loosen the lid and the air is going to come out. But during the time of the fermentation, the reason I put it in a bowl is because some of that liquid might escape on its own. And it will go in the bowl and not all over my counter. So anyway, that's all there is to fermenting cucumbers to make dill pickles. It just takes, you're going to leave this sit in like, as long as your house stays in the 72-degree range or just a little bit under, that's fine. You don't want it to be real warm, however. You don't want your house to be like in the 80-degree mark, or you don't want to put these outside. But you want to just keep these in a cool place out of direct sunlight for about 5 to 7 days. They should be ready for you. You can start tasting them at about 3 or 4 days. It depends on how sour you want them. I found in my house, because I keep my house at about 71, 72 degrees, I found in my house that it usually takes about the 7-day mark is the area that I like them. But what you can do if you want to start tasting them is you just take the lid off, remove your lettuce leaves, take one of the pickles out, taste it. If you want it to be a little bit more sour or a little more fermented, you just put your lettuce leaves back on there and close the lid. You don't want to leave it open for too long though, and let it sit out for another day or two. I always just almost automatically wait for the 7-day mark, the 6 or 7 day mark, because I know what I like, and that's what has tended to be the best for me. So anyway, that's all there is to fermenting any vegetable. Really, you can cut up carrot sticks and put some, you can put, a lot of times I'll put a couple cloves of whole garlic in my dill pickles, but I'm out of garlic, and I've never used the jarred minced garlic. I did buy some finally because I want to try it in some recipes and see just how I like it, but I wasn't sure how it would do for fermenting. So I didn't use it in this recipe. But anyway, you can put in some couple cloves of garlic. You can put in some mustard seed if you like that and give it some flavor. But anyway, that's all there really is to fermenting vegetables. And maybe someday I'll do a sauerkraut one for you. I don't eat sauerkraut hardly ever. I'm just not a fan of it. But maybe in the future, the distant future, we'll try some of that. But if you like dill pickles, I know you're going to love these. These are the best dill pickles I've ever ate in my life. My family really enjoys them. And so since we were gifted some cucumbers, I thought that I would share this recipe with you. And I hope you'll try them. So in about 7 days, we'll come back and I'll do a little taste test for you, okay? So see you then. Okay, well guys, through the magic of television, it's been 6 days since I started fermenting these cucumbers. I will tell you that about the 3rd day in, I replaced the lettuce leaves on top with a large piece of onion because the lettuce wasn't actually, I normally use cabbage leaves to do that and it works well. But the lettuce leaves were not keeping the cucumbers underneath the brine well enough. So I replaced that about halfway through, but today we're gonna go ahead, sorry about my hair, I've been running around like a chicken with my head cut off, and it shows. But anyway, we're gonna taste these cucumbers. It's been 6 days. Normally I do 7, but it's been warm enough, I think, that the 6 days should be good. And we're gonna see how they taste. So let me aim you down here so you can see me getting one of them out of the little container here. I have come along every day. I only showed a few days, but I have come along every day and opened the jar. And so we're just gonna try one of these out. Here's what they look like. It looks like a pickle. And now let's taste. They smell like a dill pickle. They smell really good. Now these aren't as crispy and crunchy as, like I said before, I normally use the English cucumbers, the seedless ones. So these are a little softer. They weren't actually pickling cucumbers, so they are a little mushier, but they're not bad. And it definitely tastes like a dill pickle. And all we used is, all you have to use for fermenting is salt and water. You want to make sure you got a real salt, not iodized table salt. That will not work. So I use the pink Himalayan salt. I used filtered water straight from my refrigerator. Nothing special or fancy. And yeah, these taste really good. Tastes like a really good dill pickle to me. So, I shouldn't talk with my mouth full. Anyway, I hope you'll try this recipe. If you're new to fermenting, this is a great way to preserve some of your vegetables, whether they're gifted to you or you grow them in your own garden, or if you find a sale at the grocery store, or if you just like pickles, you know. This is an easy way to get dill pickles for hardly no money at all, which dill pickles aren't expensive in the store. But like I said, the English cucumbers, or the cucumbers that are specially for pickling, they stay much crisper. So I encourage you to try that. And anyway, that's all for this episode, this video. And I will make sure to post the recipe or the procedure in the description box below. And as always, I thank you for joining me today. If you haven't subscribed, do subscribe, and have a wonderful, blessed day. Bye.